Trident is the only device that signifies you and identifies you as a SEAL operator. Every day I earn my Trident, no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing, whether it's on the battlefield or on liberty, I earn my Trident every day.
Chief Daniel Luna was born in Los Angeles, California, October 14, 1977. After high school, he spent 2 years working for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department prior to enlisting in January 1999. His initial sea tours were in Great Lakes, where he conducted boot camp, and Quartermaster's A School. Chief Luna began and graduated with Bud's Class 228. Chief Luna was assigned to San Diego, California at SEAL Team 1, where he served 10 years, completing 5 deployments. The deployments included 2 tours to Iraq, 2 tours to Afghanistan, 1 tour to PATCOM, and various other countries for joint training. In 2010, screened positive for Naval Special Warfare Development Group and continued various training and deployments while at that command. His qualifications include Joint Terminal Air Controller, Breacher, Sniper, EMT, ASOT Level 2, AFO Operator, Static Line and Freefall Jump Master, Range Safety Officer, and various other qualifications. His decorations include 2 Bronze Star Medals with Valor, 2 Purple Hearts, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Joint Commendation Medal, 3 Navy Commendation Medals with Valor, and other various unit and service awards. Chief Luna has an Associate's in Oceanography Technology, a bachelor's degree in Organizational Leadership from the University of Charleston, and is currently enrolled in Georgetown's Masters of Executive Leadership program. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Chief Daniel Luna.
All that stuff looks cool, and then you do it for years, and you end up like this. So you guys are finishing up a 3-day conference. You've had some pretty powerful speakers. I've been very fortunate to listen to some of them. But I want to start out asking you guys a question, why? Like, why are you here? Why was the Naval Academy chosen to do this 3-day leadership conference? Why would that be renowned, right? Hey, I went to the Naval Academy and I did a 3-day leadership conference. And some would probably be like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Why do we watch videos like this and the other intro videos that some of the other speakers had? And why is that powerful? Why do we look at that stuff and why do we admire it? Throughout time, different military personnel have been studied for their leadership decisions. And I want to present, before you guys leave today and this leadership conference ends, I want to make sure that you guys understand the power that's been shared with you guys over the 3 days. The level of consequence that is on the shoulders of some of the men and women that make the calls is at such a high cost that's why when we come here and we listen to the powerful speakers that have been on this stage and other stages here on campus, we listen and we take notes and we ask questions and we ask advice, right? The amount of pressure that is under some of the senior ranking officers is incredible. The decisions that they have to make daily, life and death, multiple lives, right? Families involved, the second and third order effects of some of their decisions. It's incredible. So if there's something that these speakers say up there That's why we have our notes out. And that's why we ask those questions. Because the amount of pressure that they've been through and what they've endured is incredible. And I think we all appreciate that on a subconscious level. You know, maybe we're like, hey, I like that stuff, and we didn't really understand why we enjoy it. But it's extreme, right? The level of consequences for making the wrong call is incredible, and it weighs a lot. I think another reason why we appreciate our military leaders is it deals in extremes. It deals when we talk about honor, when we have those character traits and we talk about loyalty. It is to such an extreme that we can't help but admire it or despise it, because the opposite is also true. When we read stories of somebody being disloyal to this nation, right? What are the consequences for that? Pretty severe, right? And there's something emotional that I would hope that every U.S. citizen would experience, that if they hear those stories, they'd be like, crush that person, right? You're disloyal. Or if a soldier does something dishonorable, unfortunately, those stories come too, right? Somebody does something overseas. It's not just dishonorable to that individual, but it's a black eye to that service. So we deal in extremes. So I want to make sure when you guys leave this conference, you understand that why. Why is it so powerful to be here? Why does the Naval Academy have a whole building and staff dedicated to leadership? Because it's that powerful, it's that important. Because the level of consequences that are involved if they make a mistake, and the extremes that the military deals in, even on the low levels, even on the individual levels, self-leadership, the decisions that I would make jumping out of that plane. Guys have made tragic mistakes flying their own canopy and hurting either themselves or other people. People have made tragic mistakes by pulling that trigger and hurting or killing another teammate. So even on the individual level, the level of consequence is very high. And I stress this point because I want you guys to really understand the why. I want you to really understand this so when you leave here, you understand the power that was shared. So when they say, use teamwork, right? When McCraven talks about the choices, when General Amos when they talked about teamwork and they stressed it, I think he said something, battle's not an individual affair, something along those lines. I loved it. I wrote it down. It's in my notes. It's to an extreme level where they're dealing with teams, right? So as you guys leave here, whether it's leading yourself or leading your team, right? You know that this information has put under so much pressure that it's been tried and it's true. Right? Where are my college students at? Where are you guys at? Just raise your hands. Come on, be proud. No, my civilian college students. Okay, so there's a decent amount. Where are my service academy folks? Nice. Okay, so this talk, I think it's funny because I never know how it's going to play out. I'll sit there and I've been working on this for days, putting this material together. But I designed this specifically for you guys, both civilian and military. We all know that, everyone older than 30, Everyone over 30 is old, and they know everything already, so it's for you college kids. All right. So I'm in a very unique position and very appreciative that I was asked to speak here. But I want to speak from a different lens. I don't want to speak from the lens of the teams that I've led or the missions that I've been a part of. I want to speak from the lens of when I've worked for you guys. And when I say you guys, I mean the officers, or even in the civilian sector. I actually had a job before I came into the military, so I understand that realm a little bit. So when I worked for all the officers that I worked for, there's kind of a top 3 list that I like to see. And I can say that these are traits that is across the board that people appreciate that work for you, right? So for my civilian friends, a quick explanation of enlisted and officer is blue collar and white collar, right? Does that make sense? You have your blue collar worker, the guy that does all the work, and then your white collar that makes sure he does all the work, okay? So we'll stick for that for simplicity. So for being a blue collar guy for 18 years, I may work for you guys one day, right? Midshipman, what does a guy like me call you when you graduate? Sir, ma'am, right? So every graduation, I have what? 1,000 new bosses. 1,000 new bosses, right? So even 18 years of experience doing all this stuff, I call you guys sir, ma'am. I hope that means something. I hope that means something to you and really starts to prepare your mind for what you're getting ready to step into. My civilian friends, I'm getting ready to retire, hopefully. All right? I may work for you. I might be at your tech company, right? I might be at whatever business you have, right? That you guys are going to take over and run. And I'm sitting there trying to learn how to type, right? So this applies to both you guys, not just the military side as well. Number 1, be a good person, right? Sounds pretty simple. Be a good person. So a lot of these speakers over the past few days, and maybe other speakers that you guys listen to, will sit there and talk about trust. If you want to be a leader, you need to build trust. Okay. If you want to be a good leader, you need to be loyal. Okay. If you want to be a good leader, you need to be sympathetic. Okay. To me, all that stuff falls under be a good person. That's it. Right? When I go and work for you, or my blue-collar brethren go and work for you, we want to work for somebody that's a good person. If you're a jerk, it's going to bleed over. If you have anger issues, it's going to bleed over. If you're lazy, it's going to bleed over. To me, all that stuff falls under, you're not a good person. So some of these basics falls under that, in my opinion. Number 1, be a good person. McCraven talked about choices and destiny. How do we build habits? Has anyone ever read a book on habits? Anyone? No one? Somebody? What did it say? Roughly. Like how long does it take to build a habit?
A long time. You have to continuously work at it and have a growth mindset.
Okay, so you read mindset. I take it growth and fixed mindset. So scientists have done all these studies on habits. They don't know. They're like, oh, it's 14 days. Well, it depends on the habit you're trying to build. It depends on your character. Really, you don't know. It's like the weather guy. Hey, well, it could be this. You don't know. basically is what you're telling me. All right? So how do we form habits? It starts with a choice. Right? What do I do with that choice to form the habit? What do you think? What do I do with that choice to form the habit?
You make a plan.
Okay. So I have to do that choice over and over and over until it forms a habit. Right? So choices lead to habits. What do habits lead to? Come on. What do habits lead to? Lifestyle? Character. Right? So our character is all our habits formed. And then our character leads to what? Destiny. So as McCraven talked about choices and destiny, I think if he had more time, he would kind of fill that in. And I'm spending a little bit of time on it because so many character traits are involved with leadership. And your character is the foundation of everything else that you build on. Your character is the foundation that everything else is built on. So, if we take these choices and we examine them, and I examine these pretty closely, how can we break down those choices? So if we sit there and we want to say, hey, I want to be a better team member. I want to be more loyal. I want to be more honorable. I want to be more respectful. I want to be more sympathetic. So whatever character trait that has been spoken over the past few days, how do we look at that and how do we implement it? And I think sometimes this stuff is skipped over, right? We leave here and maybe somebody's like, hey, if you want to be a good leader, be a visionary. Sir, if you want to run the Naval Academy, you need to be a visionary. That's my pass down to you. Be a visionary. And you're like, okay, cool, visionary. Like, how do you become a visionary? Right? How does somebody become more loyal? Comes down to your choices. So with the choice, I break it into 3 categories: healthy, unhealthy, and poisonous. So I think we can all agree that the food that we eat physically changes the shape of our body, right? If I ate McDonald's every day, I would be this big. I don't eat McDonald's every day, so I'm this big, right? I think we can all agree on that. So with that, with the nutrition that we eat for our body, it is the same thing for our mind. Right? So what we feed our mind, what we feed our brain, shapes our mind, shapes how we think. Right? And how we think shapes what? Shapes our words, and it shapes our deeds, our actions, right? So if somebody says, hey, if you want to be a leader, you need to be a person of character. A person of character. What does that mean? Right? So whatever it means in your organization, and I'm going to touch on honor real quick. Honor is not an absolute. Honor is relative. In our society, something could be honorable, but in another society, it could be dishonorable. In our culture here in the military, something could be honorable. And maybe in a biker gang, that same thing could be dishonorable. Right? So honor shifts amongst your group. So looking at your group, see what's honorable. And look at those choices and have that. Or that is part of your consideration for shaping your character, for taking part of your team. Right? Does that make sense? If I have a glass of wine, is that bad? Is that unhealthy? No. Right? I always like the science done where it's like, hey, you can drink like 2 beers and go work out and you're okay. I'm like, yes, I've always been good, right? Like, that's okay, right? So a glass of wine, healthy. A bottle of wine, right? Where are we moving on that spectrum? Unhealthy, right? Two bottles, right? Probably unhealthy. A case of wine, right? Maybe some of you guys at the other colleges have had that experience, right? And what happens? You're driving your friend to the hospital because they have alcohol poisoning, right? So examine your daily choices. So just if you go to a nutritionist and you're like, hey, I want to lose weight, right? What do they say? Hey, I want you to write down everything you eat and drink over the 24-hour period. Okay. It's the same thing. Examine your choices throughout the day because those choices will form your habits and those habits will form your character. So when I say be a good person, right? If there's a character flaw or a crack in that character, how do we change it? Or how do we become something? It starts with those choices. Right? So examine that. Be a good person. Just because I just got done talking about choices, I want to touch on this. So I think during McCraven's speech, during General Amos's speech, and during the speech yesterday, and I've heard some of the other midshipmen talk about, and a couple of questions came up, and it was failure. And I'm like, oh man, they asked, oh, that's a good question, like how do you deal with failure? And then kind of the same question was asked the next day, and then kind of the same question was like, oh man, this is on some minds of some of these folks. Failure. And the reason why I'm going to touch on this is because it has to do with your mindset, which to me deals with your character. So whether it's at individual level or a team level, how you deal with things has to do with your mindset. If there's somebody that I really don't like, so let's say I just meet you, we have a conversation, and I walk away and I was like, I don't know. I'm like, man, I can't stand this guy. And I'll examine my thoughts like, man, why don't you like this guy? And I'll sit there and I'll think about it. It's like his mindset. He said this, which lead me to believe that he thinks this way. And most likely it's a weak mindset. There's a group that I train with. It's called SOC. And my SOC brothers, we call it a feeder mindset. And that feeder mindset, the closest thing that I can think of is a positive mindset. So like if there's anyone out there that's into positive psychology, right? So something along those lines. Everything positive. Strong hand, weak hand, right? No. Strong hand, my other strong hand, right? What's another one? Oh, my weaknesses. No, I don't have any weaknesses. I have future strengths, right? But I'm telling you, words have power. So the words that you say, so thoughts, words, deeds. So all this stuff is coming back around. How you think. It's a feeder mindset. I'm not outnumbered. I have multiple targets. That's it, right? Like multiple targets. I'm not outnumbered. It's a feeder mindset. It's that positive mindset. How does this apply? On an individual level, if you fail, it's that mindset of, hey, if I fail, I'll gain something from it. I will get stronger from it. It will make me better. If I fail on a team level, it will bring the team closer. It'll make the team better. Not just me. I'll be better for it, but the team will be better. People say, hey, don't be afraid Don't be afraid of failure. Ma'am, you might make the wrong decision and you might fail. Don't be afraid of that. You kidding me? Like, that fear is there, right? But if there's no fear, there can be no what? Courage. I was talking to Doc Thomas the other day, and we were talking about honor. If there's no shame in a culture, can there be honor? Deal in opposites. If there's no fear, then there can be no courage. Right? So how do we become more courageous? How do we become more courageous? What's that? Be more afraid. No. I would say definitely recognize that fear. But how do we become more courageous? We practice it. Right? We make a choice. So psychologists call it cognitive decisions, and then that cognitive choice goes into behavior. Right? So you make a decision. And then you think about it, and then you decide and you act on it. Don't be afraid of failure. Have a feeder mindset or a strong mindset, and it will make you stronger. Number 2 of my blue-collar tips for my future boss is, what is it? Just do your job, right? So yesterday, the admiral that spoke said, it's simple, but it's not easy, right? I'm not shedding anything new to you. It's simple, but it's not easy. Be a good person, right? That's simple. For some of us, it's a lot harder than others, right? For me, sometimes I find it really hard just to be a good person. Right? 18 years of doing that, 15 years of combat, straight, going to multiple funerals, doing multiple operations overseas. You think not just me, but others lose a sense of humanity? Absolutely. Absolutely. You lose a sense of humanity. We deal in extremes, and that's why we admire so much of this stuff, and that's why we're here. Do your job. Ma'am, if I go and work for you when I retire, I want you to just be a good person. I just want you to do your job. Sometimes we get carried away with this, like, I need to be a leader, right? Like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to lead. And I tell these guys who are getting ready to go to Buds, it might be different in other communities, but I'm like, do you think that when you guys graduate Buds, that you're going to show up to the platoon space, walk into the platoon space, look at me and go like, Chief, I'm here to lead you, right? Probably going to get taped up, right? Like, you don't know your job, right? Learn your job, do your job. Once you do that, then we can start progressing from there. So when you guys show up to a new job, and this is a cycle that works for anyone. If you're the new commandant of the Naval Academy, does he just show up and start like, hey, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this? No, there's a moment in time where he's like, man, I got to wrap my mind around this. What's my job? What's expected of me? I need to figure that out first. And then once I figure that out, then I can start managing. And that leads me to my third point. Learn how to be a manager. And I know this isn't going to sit well with some folks out here. But as a blue-collar guy, speaking to my white-collar sisters and brothers, learn how to manage. What school do you go to? Tufts. What's your major?
Poli-sci and neuroscience.
Okay, awesome, right? So when I retire and I go work for you, I'm like, hey, I'm here to work, right? Do you think I care what your major is? Nah, I don't care. Do you think I care what your GPA is?
Not at all.
No. Do you think I care if you're a good person?
Yes.
Do you think I care that if you do your job?
Yep.
And do you think I care if you're in charge of me, that you know how to manage me and the team? Yeah. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? So these things I share with you guys, I know it's a leadership conference, but this, I call it the pathway to leadership. You don't just get there overnight, right? Essentially, you're doing a 3-day leadership clinic. That's what this is. Hey, we're gonna hit this for 3 days. Do I have any athletes? Who are my athletes? Right? So I got a lot of athletes out here. You guys do clinics, right? Hey, we're gonna hit, but is that it after the clinic? You're like, oh, I'm good to go. I don't need to play basketball or play lacrosse anymore, or run or train. I did my clinic, so I'm good. Right? No, right? It's a progression. Some of you guys have been athletes for years. And would you consider yourself masters in that realm? Probably not. Leadership is no different. It takes years, right? And I'm trying to help you guys out with just these simple things to set you on the right path. Your character, right? Be a good person. If you need to make adjustments, I laid that out on how to make those adjustments. Your choices form your habits, form your character, form your destiny. Right? Be a good person. Do your job. What's your degree in? Okay, where do you go to school?
MIT.
Awesome. Okay, so if I go work for you and I show up, you're like, MIT, cool. And then that's it, right? Am I gonna, hey, what was your GPA at MIT? No, right? But I want you to what? Be a good person. I want you to do your job. And if you're in charge of me, if you're in charge of us, I want you to know how to manage us. Are you studying anything in management for the past few years that you've been in school?
A little bit.
Okay, a little bit. So for some of you, your primary occupation will be that of a manager when you graduate. I'm mainly speaking to my service academy folks, right? Most likely you will be put in charge of something as soon as you graduate from your academy. Is that 10 minutes? Is that what that means? Okay, thanks. All right. So when you graduate, 4 years of what? Poli-sci, mechanical engineering, and then you're a manager. Totally different, right? So I'm trying to help you out. So for all my blue-collar friends out there, I want you guys to succeed. I talk to these guys and I tell them, hey, if you want to succeed at Buds, these are the things. You need to train. You need to do all this stuff. I'm not telling you these things to ambush you. Like I'm telling you to help you out. It is the same thing. If I go work for you, sir, I want you to be a good person, right? Do your job and know how to manage. So even though you've spent 4 years at MIT, at the Naval Academy, at West Point, wherever you're from, read books on management, okay? All right. Character is the foundation. Management is the framework. Does that make sense? Character is the foundation. Management is the framework that everything else is built on. I'm running low on time. So I covered the why. Why the past 3 days have been so important. Because of the level of consequences and the extremes that the military deals in. The amount of pressure that's been applied to a lot of the folks that you guys have heard over the past few days is incredible. To be Admiral McCraven and to sit in the spot that he sat in blows my mind. To be in charge of the air wing and some of the other stuff, the ground forces, is incredible. To be responsible for that. So over the past few days, when the folks have talked about these things, the amount of pressure is tremendous. So once again, the foundation and the framework. So when a storm comes and hits a structure, how much damage it does to that structure depends on those things. I want you guys to have a strong foundation and strong framework. And some of this stuff that I just shared with you guys will help you out. Because that storm will come. It's not if the storm comes, the storm will come. Whether it's a personal storm of loss, a personal storm of addiction, a personal storm of failure, right? That storm will come. Even on a group level, you will have it. You will experience it. I have seen teams fail horrifically. And through that failure, it actually made them stronger. And I have seen other teams, and I've been a part, unfortunately, of a team that experienced a tremendous win. And we actually broke down because of it. Because egos started getting involved, and other character flaws were teased out from that win. Right? That storm will come. So have a strong foundation, have strong framework. What am I at for time now? We got a little bit, a couple minutes. 10, 5. You give me the 5? Okay. All right, so I covered the why, the what, right? What you guys need to do. And then now I want to just touch on the now what, right? So you guys are going to leave shortly after this. I know some of you guys got planes, trains, and all sorts of stuff to catch. So now what? Now what when you guys leave here? What now? What do you do with this information that either I shared with you or some of the other speakers from the past 3 days? Maybe there's a TED Talk that you guys listened to, right? This is a universal, so I'm going to help you out. So as you guys leave here, I want you to take notes tonight, either on the train, on the plane. Write those, go through your notes and highlight those key things, right? Whatever those attributes are, whatever you walk away from, man, like, hey, General said teamwork, and I really want to work on that. Whatever it is, right? Examine that one thing, and this is what you need to do. You need to focus on that one thing, right? So you can pick your top 3 and then pick the one. So do this today while all this stuff's fresh. Focus on that one thing. It's just like sports, right? If I play 5 different sports, am I going to be really good at one of those things? Probably not, right? But if all I stick with is football, I'll probably be all right. And if I practice and I practice, and I listen, I train, I watch videos, I read books about it, right? It's the same thing with this. So when you guys leave here, whatever attribute that you find, like, hey, I really want to incorporate that in my life, focus on that one attribute. Commit to train. If I just worked out 1 day a week, I probably wouldn't be in that good of a shape. Right? If I just played lacrosse 1 day a week, I probably wouldn't be a good lacrosse player. The more you train, the better you'll be. It is the same thing with this. You want to be more courageous? It doesn't have to be physical courage. Maybe a moral courage to like, hey, I need to stand up. Hey, I need to voice up and protect my team a little bit more. Right? Focus on that one thing. Commit to train it. Right? Read books. Listen to podcasts. Watch things. TED Talks is great. I love TED Talks. Right? Listen to that stuff. Feed your mind. Because once again, I go back to thoughts, words, deeds. So if you feed your mind that and you train it, it'll transfer over into how you think, which will transfer over into how you speak, which will transfer over into your actions and your deeds that you do. Right? So that's your homework. I think, do we have questions? We'll see. Do we have time? Oh, we do have time. Okay. So before I get into that, I just want to, Brandon, where you at? Wherever you're at. Brandon, thanks for putting the video. Lieutenant McCain, thanks for inviting me. Once again, these are my blue collar tips for you guys, because I may work for you, right? So if I do come work for you, as your people work for you, it's simple, but it's not easy. Be a good person. I helped you out on that, right? Do your job, right? And learn how to manage. You guys have spent years going to school and studying things, but you may not do that. And for you service academy folks, like, nobody cares what your degree is in or what your GPA is. I don't care. Like, if you guys show up and we go to a platoon, I don't care. Like, oh, I'm Naval Academy. Oh, okay, cool. Like, that's it. I went to MIT. Oh, awesome. Like, okay, cool. You know? Like, do your job and manage well. Cool. Thanks, guys. I think... I don't know what our timeline is, so... Oh, 15. Okay, thanks. Man, you're good. Okay. So there's always like an awkward silence when we're like, hey, there's questions. So I'm going to start. If you have questions, by all means, go ahead and, I guess, step up. If not, I have questions for you guys. This is like the bonus round. Okay, here's a question that came up. So I'm going to take an old question and kick this off. How does one practice leadership now? Right? How does one practice leadership now? So let's say this was a question somebody asked the other day. Hey, how do I practice leadership now if I'm in college? Maybe you're not a part of something or in charge of something. Right? You can practice it with yourself. Self-leadership. Managing your time. Right? Not mismanaging anything. Not micromanaging other people. Right? So look at yourself, examine yourself and how you're leading yourself. And I go back to choices. What choices you're making, right? So how are you leading yourself? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chief Luna. I am Jacqueline Scott from an electrical engineering major from Bucknell University. So you mentioned earlier how your 15 years in service took a lot out of you. How did you get back in touch with your humanity during and after your years of service?
No, great question. So for me, it wasn't something that I was cognitive of. A loss of humanity, just like I viewed everyone as a target or a potential target, and there was about a year time frame where there was somebody that I could have helped, and I walked away. And I didn't even notice it. My wife picked it up. She's like, hey, go help them out. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go help them out. Like, that's on them for not being prepared. That's on them for not being strong. That's on them for not training. I'm good. Like, we're squared away. I'm not helping them. So she brought it up, just little instances like that, and I started to notice it after that. And then there was a time where I drove away from something that I should have stopped and really helped that individual out because I had the ability to help them out. So it's the same thing. So the same thing that I just shared with you guys, I focused on it. Hey, this is an issue, right? So cognitively, I made the decision, and then behaviorally, I made the changes. So even it is still something now that I work on. Because there's things that I default to instantly. I don't like people standing behind me. I don't like people at a certain range. Sometimes people say stuff to me, and sometimes, my initial thought is to just punch them, So it's still something that I work on. But I'm focused on it. It's something I focus. I'm committed to train it because I think about it. And I do. So I practice what I preach. So what I just shared with you guys, It's the same thing. Commit to train. Oh, I'm actually glad you brought that up. So a coach, mentor, or guide is the third piece. I apologize, I left that out. So like any sports team, right, what do you have? What do you guys have? Sprint football guys, right? So you're like, hey, we're sprint football guys. We play it. We train it. How often you guys train, right? 5 days a week, 6 days? 6 days a week. And then is somebody there to help you out? Yeah, there's coaches, right? So everything in that physical realm helps out in that non-physical realm. Hey, I want to be more courageous, right? How does somebody become more courageous? Whether it's a moral or physical courage, right? They focus on it. They commit to train. Hey, little things, right? Maybe I just say a little white lie. Or that guy says this and I'll do this. Like, no, I'm going to start showing some courage. I'm not going to do little white lies. Hey, the truth is hard. Hey, but it's the honorable thing to, and recognizing those moments and then having somebody to help you out.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right, what are my other questions for you? Did you guys get anything out of this conference? Yeah? Is it pretty powerful? Did you guys enjoy it? Is this something that you guys would do again, the conference? We're kind of looking more for like the civilian folks out there. Did you guys enjoy it? Does it make sense, the level of consequence that's been applied to some of the folks sitting behind you guys? The amount of pressure, the level of responsibility that the men and women, when they stand up here and they talk, like, I can't take notes fast enough, right? Because if there's a cue word that they use, right, to help them out, or if there's some sort of mental model to help them out, like, I want to know, right? I'm listening to a thing right now on Steve Jobs, right? He's big on passion, right? I want to know. I want to know what Steve Jobs did to make his company successful. So I do the same thing. And what am I doing by listening to that stuff? I'm feeding my mind, right? And what am I feeding my mind? Am I feeding my mind junk food? Or is that healthy? What do you guys think up there? It's healthy, right? I want to get stronger, right? I want to get healthier. Because for you future, right? Maybe my future bosses, it is that important. Because the level of responsibility, the level of consequences that's going to be resting on your shoulders when you guys go into your next position. When you guys leave here, what is expected of you guys, right? I can't stress it enough, right? And I don't say any of this stuff to ambush you guys. Like, I want the best. I truly want the best for you guys. Like, I want you guys to succeed, right? My civilian friends, I want you guys to succeed, right? I want America to be strong, right? So anything that I can do to help you guys out, to help share that, these are just things that I have found in my realm that has helped me out. Yes, sir.
Chief Luna, Lieutenant Commander Barr here at the Leadership Department of the Naval Academy. Thank you so much for your talk this morning.
Thank you.
Today you gave us the basics, the bachelor's level of leadership. Looking for the PhD, a hint from the PhD. Who is the greatest leader you served under, and what were the characteristics that made them?
Ooh. So I don't, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm not going to answer your question, but I'm going to answer your question. To me, PhD level leadership is, so we kind of talked about the pathway, and then how about what do you do when you get there? So now we start getting into styles. So there's transformational, which I believe you guys teach at Luce. There's other styles. I think there's roughly about 18 styles that are commonly used. I believe there's over 100 different styles of leadership, but there's about 16 to 18 that are commonly used out there, right, of styles. I don't care about the styles necessarily, because we're all different, right? I'm about strength. So whatever style works for you, know your strengths, right? And then find out what pairs up with that, right? So kind of make your own program. See what program's out there. Once again, I refer back to sports, right? Maybe you're into yoga, right? Maybe you're into spinning, right? You guys are into lifting, right? Is one right or wrong? No, just different, right? We have different paths on how we accomplish fitness. It's the same thing with leadership. There's a lot of different styles out there, and you have to find what matches your character. Right? I just did the Strength Finder. You guys know what I'm talking about? Have you guys done that? Okay, if you haven't, I recommend it. I think if you go to the website, it's like $15. Do the Strength Finder, find out those key character traits, and then look at that. Look at those leadership styles out there. Find what pairs up with you. And then the next thing, the PhD level, to me is power. Power and strategy. So once you've you got that pathway, you've made it there, right? You've climbed that summit, you're up top, you figured out that style that's with you, now what? Power and strategy are those top two things when you're at the top. And this hasn't come from like my personal experience. This has just come from personal studying that I've done are those things. You look at presidents, you look at high-level military leaders, how they deal in the realm and understand power, right? Machiavelli, the prince, the prince is a letter to who? The prince, right? By a guy that spent time in the courtroom moving and wielding power and understanding power almost like a physical characteristic to where they could give it, they could take it, they can get more of it, right? So if you can understand these things and move it around, and then strategy, of course, right? So that's kind of like my own mental model for that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your question. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Simone Hardiman. I am a fourth-year, five-year MBA major, leadership studies minor from Hampton University. And you spoke about different habits. What are some of the habits that you've adopted that have helped you become an effective manager and leader?
Great question. So the first thing that popped in my mind is, when does our day start for most people? What's the first thing that pops in your mind? When does your day start? When we wake up. I think that's false. I don't think our day starts when we wake up. Let's say you and I go to, what's the local, Acme? Let's say you and I go to Acme tonight, right? We burn it down, right? We get 2 hours of sleep, and now we wake up, I gotta go to work, you gotta go to school, right? How do you think we're feeling? Terrible. So when did that morning start? The night before, right? So this is something key that I have found moving around with high-level, very disciplined individuals, is your day does not start in the morning. Your day starts the night before. How much sleep you get, what you eat, what you drink, relationship-wise, if there's a fight, if it's healthy, unhealthy relationship, right? If my wife and I have a fight, and we go to bed angry at each other, and I wake up that morning, you think I'm gonna still feel that in the morning, right? I'm sure a lot of you have had relationship issues, and you wake up the next morning, and you're just like, oh, right? That day does not start when you wake up. That day starts the night before. So my preparation for the day, like I said, I deal in extremes. I've done very extreme stuff for a very long time, and I'm very serious about the work that I've done because I've put my friends in the ground. And that's failure. Right? I've experienced failure on such a level that I pray to God that none of you guys have to ever experience. And some of you folks in this room have experienced that same failure. Right? So I'm very serious about everything that I've shared with you guys, because it has come from loss, and it's come from winds, and it's come from a storm that has knocked me down crying. And you got to get back up. My day starts the night before, and there's different readings that I'll do, and then I go to bed. So when I sit there, that's the last thing I put in my body. And then I digest that as I sleep, and then when I wake up, I'm good to go. Got it, thanks. I'm good to go that next day. All right? So a little bit different answer to your question, but I hope that helped.
It did.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir. I'm Cadet Rohan Pal from Indian Naval Academy.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, our way of life and well-being in the services they often depend upon the abilities of a leader to inspire, to lead under the most harrowing conditions and unimaginable levels of stress. But it's the military ethics, the military ethos that play a very important role in these conditions. Sir, I want to know, how do you go about these duties, especially considering that we are living in a world where many organizations and businesses, they are working towards having a shared, they're working to become a more valued, shared businesses are basically, how do I get this?
The globe is flattening, I think, is what, everything's more interconnected
So they want
globally.
to become more value-based.
Okay.
So then also, for a corporate and military leadership, they are distinctly different from each other. But from a management standpoint, what's the greatest lesson that can be learned from a Navy SEAL?
So I'm actually doing a study right now, my own personal study. I study this stuff, when I say stuff, leadership management, academically, and then I do a lot of studying on my own, readings as well. So right now I'm putting stuff together on the universals of management, right? So marketing for military, right? It doesn't, those two you wouldn't think go hand in hand, but it's a universal, right? In the civilian sector, you're like, hey, we need to market this. In the military, you would never think of marketing typically, but you do, right? So whether it's a SEAL platoon, you need to market that platoon and be like, hey, we're doing this, keep your reputation up. So you're still marketing it, so it's a universal. I don't, off the top of my head, or my initial thoughts, that's what, I wouldn't say that's the most important thing. I don't know if there is one important thing as a Navy SEAL. I guess I can share with you, and I've shared with you a lot of my thoughts that it's gotten me through. I've had my last deployment was extremely difficult for me on a personal level. I'd experienced 2 losses before the deployment. While I was on that deployment, I had another friend killed. And then I had some injuries that I was working through at the time. So I had a lot of stuff going on, and what got me through that was be a good person. Don't lay in bed. Get out of bed, do your work, listen to them, and do what you need to do. Be a good person. So once again, that character is your foundation, and learning management skills is the framework. All right, thank you guys. I think that's it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for your words. On behalf of the United States Naval Academy Leadership Conference, we'd like to present a small token of our appreciation.
I gotta open this now. Nice. Thank you guys so much. It's truly an honor, and I understand the meaning of the word honor, and I say that it is truly an honor for me to be here, and every time I get an opportunity, specifically to work with you guys, but the rest of you midshipmen, right? It's important to me because my brothers make it on your sub, your aircraft, your tank, right? Your ship, whatever it is. And I love my brothers, and I want to see them taken care of. So I care, and the stuff that I shared with you guys, please chew on it. Please think about it. Investigate it, put it to the test, but it's to help you guys out. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Before I start, I'd like to invite all of the Leadership Conference staff to come up here and join me on the stage real quick. So there's going to be an awkward pause. and also the officers that helped put together the leadership conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the last 3 days of the leadership conference has been what I compare like a duck moving across the pond seamlessly. But underneath the pond, to move the duck, are two fins kicking furiously that you don't see. These are the two fins kicking furiously to put together this great leadership conference. As Chief Luna said, these are the blue-collar workers that made this happen. These are the people that put together the hotels, the buses, the food, the escorting. So please join me in giving them a very, very loud applause. Now, as Chief Luna said so succinctly, when you have blue-collar workers, you must have a white-collar. Akbar, please. Our white-collar worker or manager who's put this together, who has herded the cats. My leadership tenet to you, a good leader has to be able to herd the cats toward a mission. Akbar, you have herded the cats. Thank you very much.
When I got to hear the end of Chief Luna speak, and he mentioned Acme and how you got to prep the night before, and brought back some PTSD. So, thank you. But I did have a few remarks that I'd like to make before we close this conference. So, when the staff and I began preparing for this conference back in April of 16, it seemed like a mountain of a task. Contacting speakers, booking the hotel, negotiating with buddies, writing the theme, making the videos, reaching out to delegates, all tasks that required constant effort and hard work. I didn't do any of that. The staff you see on the stage, they put in the work, they put in the countless hours needed to make this conference a success. I may be considered the chairman, but these people are the true leaders of the conference. I can't express how thankful I am that I had the opportunity to work alongside y'all. Thank you. I also wanted to thank you all, the delegates. Without your insight, background, and questions, this conference would not have been a success. I hope that you all can take something back with you from here, whether that be an experience or a rubber ducky. I actually had a quote I'd like to read. It's from the book Season of Life. So the poem is called The Guy in the Glass. So it reads, when you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that guy has to say. For it isn't your mother, brother, or friends whose judgment you must pass. The person whose verdict counts most in your life is that one staring back in the glass. You can go down the pathway of years, receiving pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you cheated that guy in the glass. So please, keep striving to be better than your former self. I wish you all the best in the future. We'll be shuttling people from alumni. Buses will run to the airport. But thank you again. This conference is concluded.